Hello again and welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the extent environment variable to limit your analysis on the fly with your environment settings. The extent environment setting is useful for creating an area of interest for your analysis. So imagine that I select these parcels, or these polygons in the parcels layer here, and I go to selection, make this the only selectable layer just to keep it clean, and I select those polygons there. And then just so we could see a little better, let's create a layer for a moment and then deselect and move this layer below these sample locations. So we have these sampling locations, and maybe we want to extract some digital elevation model data to the sampling locations. But for this analysis, our area of interest is just in this area here, the sampling locations that fall within here. Well, I can use this selected layer here, the layer I created from the selection, to create an area of interest. And by doing this, I can force a tool that runs to only operate on the points that fall within that area. Now, I can hear some of you already saying, well, but I already know how to do that. Why wouldn't I just select the points instead, since if I pass a selection on a layer into a geoprocessing tool, it only operates on those selected features? Well, the nice thing about the area of interest or the extent environment setting would be that it's going to let you repeat that, and you can create an area of interest up front and run it across many tools easily without having to do a lot of interactive selection. So you can use the extent environment setting, or you could maybe use this set of polygons to create a selection on the layer. It's up to you, but they each serve their uses. So let's go ahead and extract the DEM data to these points, the value of the DEM where each point is located to the points. So before I do that, I need to actually make this permanent. I need to export it to its own feature class so that it can get an updated extent setting on the layer itself. So we will, actually I'm going to navigate. There we go. I'll call it area of interest. Want to add it to the map, and I'll remove the selection layer here. And then to extract the value of the digital elevation model to the points, I'm going to extract values to points from the Spatial Analyst toolbox in the extraction toolset. And I'll select my point features as the input points. And for the input raster, I'll select this DEM. And for the output, I'll call it sampled locations with DEM. And I'm not going to interpolate the values at the point locations. That would be, it will take the values of the DEM to mean the cell centers, and it will figure out what value should be where the point is by interpolating. But I'm not going to do that. We'll just extract the raw DEM values, and I'll click OK. And first we get back a layer with all of the points. Notice, because I did not set the environment setting. But if we go to that last run, and instead I change that, and then I'll put it in area of interest, and I'll set the environment setting here. And under the processing extent section, I can set the extent value, and I can select a layer to mean same as layer area of interest, and it will put in the coordinates of the top, left, bottom, and right for me. And just like we saw with output coordinate system, if I close out the environments now and then go back in, it will call it as specified below. So don't be worried. If you select the same as layer, it's going to just read that right then and then keep it as a specification in case that layer changes or something. So I'll click OK, and then I'll run this again. And notice that this time the layer is only the red points are only the ones that fell within this area of interest. I'll turn off the full layer here so you can see the points that came back are only the ones that were within this extent area here. The little points that were inside these larger areas did not come back. So by setting the extent of the geoprocessing environment to this area of interest here, the blue polygons, I was able to subset the points during the geoprocessing workflow to only analyze these data. Now, as I said before, if I was concerned that maybe it wasn't going to honor that environment, I could go to the tool help. And down here at the bottom, it shows me all the environment that this tool honors, and extent is one of them. Okay, and just by way of showing you a little more realistically what's going on when we work in GIS, not just the pre-prepared demos, I want to also show you the extract multi-values to points tool here. I think this is an even better tool than the extract values to points, and I tend to use it even when I want to just extract one raster. So the extract values to points tool extracts the data to the attribute table, and I can see here it adds a field called raster value. But if I want to keep doing that and add multiple raster layers, it won't do it because it keeps trying to add a field named raster value and that's already there. So when I want to add multiple values, extract data from multiple rasters, I use the extract multi-value to points tool instead. And for input rasters, I just drag the raster in and it says raster and then gives me a chance to name the field. And so I'll often use this instead of just the extract values to points tool, even when I only have one raster, because I like being able to output a field name instead. It makes it a lot better for our data when I can actually have field names that make sense instead of fields named raster value everywhere. And if I select the sampled locations with digital elevation model as the input points, or excuse me, the Leavenworth sample locations as the input points, I can theoretically get the same workflow as I just did, where I should be able to get the extent environment and the data to attach to the raster. And just to check, we'll go to the tool help and make sure that it does honor the extent environment. And it says it does. So we can run that and set the environment setting to processing extent, and then again set it to area of interest. I'll click OK and click OK again. And this tool works in place as well. So notice that I didn't set an output location. It works in place and it attaches raster value here. And this one was already there. So this is the new one, but notice that they're all null. It's not just that some of them are null, all of them are null values. So somewhere in setting that environment setting, something went wrong. And we could debug this by going back to extract raster values by points, or extract multi-values by points. And I'll select the point features again, Leavenworth sample locations, and I'll select my input raster. And I'll say, I'll name it with no extent setting, just so I know what I'm doing here. And this time I'll run it. And let's open the attribute table up again. And when I run it without setting the environment setting, it seems to extract just fine. So it said it honors the extent environment setting, but somewhere I'm either missing something or we have a bug here. And I have a theory that it's a bug, but it's still very possible that I'm failing to understand some usage of the extent environment in a context like this, where it's appending data back to the features that you put in. Notice that the big difference between these two tools is that one output a new feature class and the other is working on the input features. And it may have problem working with that, even though it said it honored the environment settings. So challenge to those of you who like them, see if you could figure out what's going on here. But that's by no means homework or anything for any of you. But just wanted to show you this because sometimes it's not always clear cut. I honestly don't know exactly what's going on here and why it's not working well. And I wanted to show you that because originally I was going to work with the extract multi-values to points tool for this demo. And I'm trying to make a point of showing you more and more some of the stuff that goes on in the background and some of the plenty of churn and frustration that I have too in working with ArcGIS and in working with data, so that you don't feel quite so alone when you run into these problems or like you're doing something that others wouldn't do. This happens to all of us. And that's it for this lecture. In this lecture, I showed you the extent environment setting by showing you how we could use it in the context of the extract values to points tool and the extract multi-values to points tool, which take raster data and attach it as attributes to point data. It's sort of like, you know what I'm going to say, spatial join for rasters to points. We saw that it worked great and subset our data for us in a way that we can reproduce or use in some sort of automated process across many feature classes, or just to keep our area of interest known and stored. And then we also saw that when we ran it with the extract multi-values to points tool, the extent environment setting didn't work so great. So your mileage may vary, but it's another tool to keep in your pocket. In the next lecture, I'm going to show you 3 more environment settings that are closely related in my experience. I'll show you the mask environment setting, the snap raster environment setting, and the cell size environment setting. See you there.